Okay, so even though I've kind of cut down on covering comics because, as I said, that the comics don't seem to be written for the fans at this point, I did say that I would go back and review, or I said I would review this newest Spider-Man issue in my previous video. So here we are. I'm not gonna do a real detailed synopsis and do a page by page thing like I've done in other comic reviews. This is more on the lines of just like a flat out just I'm telling you what's going on, and I might show you a panel or two depending on how important it is. But it's really just a follow up to last week's video. So, as you all know from the preview images, we saw Peter and Mary Jane getting ready to square up and fight on that bridge. Now, one of the other things to notate now that we actually got the issue is that I guess it's important. They had like one panel in here, or one page in here, that was talking about, or that was rather a setup for the next arc in the comics, which is the gang war that they've been advertising lately. Specifically this week, they had a whole like trailer for it. And admittedly, I will say that does look interesting. The aspect of all these gangs and superpower gangs having this battle, I think for territory, I'm not quite sure, but I know this is this huge battle, and I think it's supposed to take place in like over the course of in Marvel time. It's supposed to take place in like 2 days or something like that. I can't remember from the trailer, but all the street level Marvel heroes are the ones who are dealing with it. So Spider-Man's leading the charge, and he has like Spider-Man with him, aka Miles. He has Daredevil, or the Electro version of Daredevil. He has, who was it? I think Luke Cage and Jessica Jones maybe are there. I know Luke Cage was there, and a bunch of other people who I don't really remember right now. I'll probably throw an image on the screen so you all can see it if you hadn't seen it. But yeah, it looks interesting, but you know, it's one of those things where you're kind of cautiously optimistic because we know what Marvel has done, so they'll put together these arcs, these advertisements for these arcs that look like on you know, just at first glance like, oh, this is gonna be kind of cool, but then you get to the arc and it's like, oh okay, that's what that was. So again, cautiously optimistic. I'll look at it, I'll read it when it gets here. If it's worth covering, then I'll definitely do videos for you all. But otherwise, you know how it is. So yeah, back to this comic. Again, they had a page kind of teasing the next arc, and then we cut to Norman, who's making a spear. Now, that's one thing I didn't know last week when I made the video, was that Kraven and Goblin Queen had imbued the Goblin sins in this spear, and they intended on stabbing Norman with it to put the sins on him. Peter hopped in the way of that, and he got stabbed by the spear, which is why he has the sins. So just kind of a update on that. Now, again, Norman is making another spear in his lab to contain the sins. And keep in mind, and it says this later in the comic, that he seems to be rushing, and he is rushing because he's trying to save Peter. So keep that in mind. But as we get to through the issue, we cut back to where Peter and MJ about to square off. Goblin Queen hops in the way, pins Peter down, basically threatens him. She's like, she doesn't have any patience to deal with Peter, so she's gonna take down Peter right there. And then Miles. He's not in this comic. Mary Jane steps in with her jackpot abilities and saves him. She's basically like, no one's gonna be killing Peter Parker today, regardless of whatever's gotten into him. So when she kind of has her head or her attention focused on Goblin Queen, Peter sneaks off and goes to snatch up Paul and jumps over the bridge with him. So he says, it's a lot of corny dialogue and stuff in here that I'm not gonna really repeat, but he pretty much takes Paul over the bridge and just drops him. And you know, for that second, even though as Spider-Man fans, you know Peter Parker is supposed to do that, it's just like, yes. But they can't even, the comic doesn't even let you try to like bask in the fact that Paul's just been thrown off a bridge, because immediately, and it's almost jarring, because immediately Kraven pops in, gets gets into a fight with Spider-Man, and then Mary Jane has already saved Paul in all this time. Like everything just happens like bam, bam, bam. There's not a lot of panels showing all this happening. It's just like he drops Paul. Kraven's like, hey yo, what up? Let's go. And then Mary Jane's kind of caught Paul already. Goblin Queen's just kind of watching all this, I guess, because she's not present. So Spider-Man and Kraven do battle, and I say do battle. It's not really. It's really more so Spider-Man's kicking Kraven's ass, but Kraven is serving as more of a distraction for Spider-Man because Norman is coming in with the spear. But what we do see is that Kraven is just like, oh, you buried me alive with the gun, and I didn't pull the trigger, so that means I'm not like my dad or my grandma or whatever. So that was just like this awakening moment, I think they called for him. He was just he's not his father. I guess that's what the whole point was. He's a hunter, but he's not like his father. So again, this is all a distraction. Norman pops up, stabs Peter with the spear. The sins are pretty much immediately absorbed out of Peter into the spear. And that's that. Again, this is another jarring section because it's like Peter gets stuck with the spear, and the sins are put back into the spear, and then next thing you know, it's like this panel, him hugging MJ, apologizing or whatever. And I'm like, how did we get here? I don't know if I accidentally skipped a page or what, but it's just like it's jumping. It's from this thing to this thing. It's like there's no, getting to from point A to point B. Is like from point A to point C. And I'm like, did y'all skip something? But anyway, yeah, they pretty much save Peter, and that's that. Like there's not really anything else to it. The only thing is, before the issue closes out, Norman is kind of monologuing. He's been kind of monologuing to himself throughout the issue, but Norman is kind of monologuing, and he said something about along the lines of this: the sins are always destined to come back to him, or something like that. Even though the spear was made to hold them, he can tell, because he does also notate, like I said, that he rushed with the spear. So he looks at his desk, and he has like this clear reflection desk, and he sees the reflection of the Goblin, and at that point he's just kind of like slightly panicking, and then he accidentally lets out like this slight giggle, like a and then he catches himself, and that's pretty much where it's like to be continued question mark, and that's pretty much the comic, right? Like that was the comic. Very uneventful for the most part. It was very predictable. And we all knew that Norman was going to get those sins back. Like there was no doubt about that. We knew that Norman Osborn was going to get those sins back. So again, I mean, what can I say? We need new writers. I'm not going to go into that spiel again. I will say though that the scene with Norman when he saw his reflection gave me flashbacks to the 90s series, and I don't know if it did this in the comic. I'm still kind of doing my read through. If you were watching my channel last year, I started this series, which I really need to continue. I was gonna go through all of the Spider-Man comics from the very first one back in the 60s to catch up, but in the midst of all the craziness that Marvel has done with Spider-Man in the past year, it's just like I just didn't have the energy to read through all of them, even though I know those are the better comics. It's just like, again, it's kind of, you read the good comics and then you get to where we are now, and it's just like it's borderline depressing. But yeah, I'm actually ironically on Green Goblin's first appearance right now, so again, I'll get the next part of that video out at some point. I hadn't forgotten about it. It's just again Marvel, man. You just don't want to read the comics, even the old ones, because you know what they're doing to the characters now. But yeah, no, Norman seeing the reflection and everything, it reminded me of the 90s series. This scene where Norman is trying to hold Osborn. I'm sorry. Norman's trying to hold Goblin in and hold him at bay. He's trying not to let him take over. And they always had this thing where they were always talking to each other. But it was a very interesting thing. And there's this one scene that always stuck out to me for like 20 years. And I always found it funny. But in any case, Yeah, that's the video for today. Again, going back to working on my script because I plan on playing through Spider-Man 2 for you all when it drops next week. So I hope you're looking forward to that. I'm damn sure looking forward to playing it. There probably won't be any commentary. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not gonna want to commentate while I'm playing the game because I'm gonna be in it. But I do want to capture that gameplay for you all so you can see it. So again, be looking for that. Hit that like button if you like what you saw here today. Drop a comment. Hit that subscribe button, please. And remember, we have the high ground. Catch you later.